Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of the Muslima podcast. I apologize for kind of slacking off last week with uploads. Inshallah, I'm trying to be more consistent with them. But alhamdulillah, here I am for today's episode. And today I'll be speaking about success as a Muslim. And not only success, but how to approach it, setting yourself up, and working for it. There are so many things that come before success, and it is not an easy thing to achieve. But just because it is not easy does not at all mean it is not possible. And alhamdulillah, as Muslims, there are so many ways we can go about it. I always think that since alhamdulillah we're Muslim, there are so many ways we can become closer and achieve success that, we're given dua, we can pray salah, we can talk to Allah and ask Him to grant us success, which other people who are not religious, for example, are not given that same opportunity. And Allah is the best of planners and He grants success to whoever He will. So inshallah we can become of those people. There's so many of us that when we go in sujood and we ask Allah, we're like, Ya Allah, please grant me success for dunya wal akhirah. And we need to ask ourselves, what exactly do we mean by success for dunya? Because there's so many different ways that us in ourselves define success. And in order to really recognize that, we need to recognize what exactly we want to succeed in this dunya. So now, before anything, you need to know what exactly you want and what you desire to achieve. Don't just start blindly. You need to create a vision, a light at the end of your tunnel, something to work towards. Because if you don't set a goal or a vision, you're going to find yourself going through loopholes, and that can land you back right where you started. Take time and make sure that this goal you have is one that you are happy with and passionate about. Of course, this goal can change over time. It's your goal, and everyone has different objectives and visions for their future. It's just good to have a starting point, a rough draft, a flashlight to lead you. Whether this goal is religious, whether it's a job, a business, anything. And as Muslims, alhamdulillah, the one guide we will need is none other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For some, this is the most difficult part in their journey, and that is putting your trust in Allah and having tawakkul. Tawakkul is a very important word in everyone's journey. I love the meaning of tawakkul because it's just saying, giving up all your worries to Allah, because Allah knows everything. Why stress and why waste your time stressing over something that Allah already knows the answer to? Allah already has it written for you. So just put your trust into Him and you will not be disappointed. I mean, you're starting this journey, whatever it may be, a business, a new job, university, anything. You need guidance. You need a starting point. You might not even know where to start and you're going to find yourself lost. But are you forgetting who created you? Who has everything written down for you, and it is Al-Alim, Al-Qadir, all-knowing and all-able? He knows you better than you know yourself, and He knows exactly what's best for you. How could you find it difficult to trust Him with your decisions and your goals? Take this, for example. You're starting at this new school, a university, a college, anything, and you're unsure where to start. You're told, there's a counselor who can help you, and he knows everything about the school and classes. So you tell yourself, okay, well, I'll just go to this counselor and trust them with guiding and counseling me through these few years, since, you don't know a lot about this school and these courses, and it'll help you plan for your future. You put your trust in this counselor, whoever it may be, because you're unfamiliar and, you want to look up to someone who can help you with all these courses and all this new stuff. Well, what if I told you that there is one greater that knows everything beyond that anyone on this planet can offer? He's the best at guidance, Al-Hadi, and the best of planners, Al-Makir. He knows everything and has already decided what's going to happen and what's not going to happen. And you know who this is. So what is stopping you from trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asking Him for success? Is He not Al-Mu'ti, the giver? You are given 5 prayers every day. 34 sajdas at minimum are given to you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to ask Him for anything and everything. Okay, these are the minimum, just 34 sajdas every day. Not counting the sunnah rak'at, the tahajjud, qiyam, etc. What is stopping you from asking Allah for success, for guidance through your journeys? What is stopping you from trusting Him? Go pray to Allah for guidance and you're going to receive it. Surely Allah is the guide of those who believe to a straight, upright path. In Surah Al-Hajj, verse 22, it says, "Surely Allah is the guide of those who believe to a straight, upright path." Just believe in and trust Allah. Wallahi, that's all you need. Once you give up your worries to Allah and have faith in Him, you are not going to be disappointed. And just remember my words, because sometimes people will find themselves in a dark time in their lives and they're gonna feel helpless, like there's nothing else they can do, there's no one who they can look to for help, nothing. But as a Muslim, how can you ever feel that way when you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Now, it's normal to sometimes feel alone and helpless and not have someone to help you, but that's why it's so important to remember Allah in your life. And as I said before, He gave us all these prayers, all these sajdas to ask Him for guidance, to ask Him for help, to ask Him for success, ask Him for anything. You lost a loved one and you need patience, ask Him to grant you sabr. You're doing bad in a class and you're failing all your exams, ask Him for knowledge and success. You lost your iman after Ramadan and can't keep consistency, ask Him for guidance, ask Him to keep you onto the right path. Build that foundation of a strong iman so that you can turn back to it, so that when you're in a tough time, you can turn back to Allah. And I'm not saying just when you're in a tough time, turn back to Allah. I'm saying that's when you're going to need it the most. So it's good that you already have a strong connection with Allah and that you can trust Him to give you the best and the very best, because He's the best of planners and He knows exactly what's going to happen and what's not going to happen. Everything's already written for you in the best and most perfect way. And on that note, once you have that foundation to start with, you need to understand that your desired success will not come unless you work for it. And it seems obvious, like, okay, you want something, okay, work for it. But when I say work for it, I really mean work for it. And that isn't just in terms of, oh, I gotta invest this, I gotta apply for this job, I gotta whatever. No. I'm talking in terms of working towards your success through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because nothing is possible without the will of Allah. So if you don't have that foundation to start with, then why are you even starting? Before you put all your focus into being successful and just putting your mind into that, put that focus onto your relationship with the one who will grant you that success. Al-Fattah, the grantor of success. Once you have that base, you have Allah in your heart and you are constantly remembering Him and He is constantly remembering you, how much more successful can you be? And as I said before, you can't just start guidelessly. You need someone to guide you through, even in your darkest times, to pull you out. And that person is going to be Allah. Whether you realize it now or you realize it then, it is going to be Allah, and it is always going to be Allah. There is no success without Allah. So depending on how badly you want something, it depends on how much you're willing to sacrifice and how much you're willing to put in for the sake of Allah. Okay, so now that you built your relationship with Allah and you're consistent with your salah and you have purified your intentions, okay, now what? Now what do I do? Those things like your consistency with salah and making dua and trusting Allah, that is the very tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to it, and there's so much more that you can achieve, because as Muslims, we should be growing every day. We should be adding and strengthening to our iman every single day, because every single day we can become better. And you need to recognize your weaker areas and you need to work on those, because okay, you're consistent with your salah, good job, that's not an easy thing to do. Many Muslims, that's like the number one struggle they have. They can do everything else, but their salah is the hardest thing to keep consistent with. So if you're consistent with your salah, that's great, that's amazing, that's a great thing to achieve. A sign that your ibadah has been accepted is that your ibadah is consistent, alhamdulillah. Now you can focus on your weaker parts. Maybe, for example, you need to strengthen your relationship with the Quran. You don't read enough Quran. Or maybe you have trouble remembering Allah during the day. Do more dhikr. Or maybe you have trouble with backbiting. You need to focus on minimizing that. And if you aren't there yet, that's okay. Keep making dua and ask for guidance. And if you want me to go more into depth about this, I have an episode dedicated to salah and I recommend you listen to it. Now back to the topic of success. Success does not come easily and it does not come fast and it doesn't come right away. For some people it may and for some people it might not. And Allah's the best of planners and He knows exactly when to grant and when to not grant something. So now you just have to be patient and have sabr, have tawakkul and trust the process. There's a lot of people who unfortunately They keep making dua for something, and then after a while they're like, oh, I haven't gotten what I want, I'm just gonna give up, and then they just stop being consistent and they stop having faith in Allah. Do not be one of those people. You need to keep consistency with everything you do in Islam. Salah, forgiveness, dua, everything. As I said before, Allah is the best of planners and knows exactly what to give you and when to give it to you. Do not doubt Allah's plans. And remember, Allah tests the ones that He loves the most. Take for example the story of Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam. Shaitan had so much hatred for the Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam because he was very wealthy, had a big family with many children, and he had strong health. Shaitan would go to Allah and he'd say that the only reason that he had a strong iman was because of all his riches and his blessings. He asked to take them away from him as a test to see his trust in Allah and his patience. And for 18 years, Prophet Ayyub lived in extreme poverty. He was very ill and lost all his children. Having many illnesses, he was isolated and was not approached by anyone. The only one who stuck with him was his wife, and in all his years of struggle, he did not once complain or say, "Why me?" Once he had made dua and said, "Indeed, adversity has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful." After all these struggles, he just supplicated to Allah and he'd say, "Adversity has touched me. Hardship has touched me." All of this, and it was just a touch. And for us, if one small thing happened, we'd go and we'd complain to all of our friends, "This happened to me. Why would this happen to me? For what reason?" And I too, I'm guilty of this. And this story, alhamdulillah, makes me realize that how small our struggles could be. After all this sickness, after all these struggles and losing his family and all his health that he's worked 70 years for, losing it all, and after all of it, he supplicates to Allah and he says that it had just touched me. Just a touch. That is something that's just so beautiful, and that's why I love the story of Ayyub alayhi salam so much. He didn't once abandon his iman or salah, even though he might have been seen as helpless at times. He always had Allah in his heart and remembered Him. And as said in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 152, "Remember me and I will remember you." After 18 years of patience, Shaitan had given up and saw that Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam could not back down and stayed close to his iman, even when others wouldn't have. After all these struggles, he was showered with fortune, his family was multiplied, and he regained his health. He had passed one of the hardest tests of this dunya because he trusted Allah through every hardship. This story is so beautiful, and it is a story that I always look back on anytime I see that I'm trying to complain, or I might complain about something so small. I see the difference between my quote-unquote hardship and I compare it to this story. And now, of course, not every struggle has to be belittled because everyone struggles and everyone sees hardship. But this story just makes you feel more comforted and helps you remember how much blessing you have in your life. So the next time you build a goal for yourself and you want to see success in your life, remember to always plant Allah first. Number one step for everything is to build that foundation and that strong iman, and to always remember Allah. In everything you do, always remember Him, and He is going to remember you. And have patience, have tawakkul, have sabr. And inshallah, you will see success and you'll see yourself building up to that goal. Now, that is the end of today's episode. I really hope my words encouraged and helped you. And of course, I'm not a scholar, so if there's anything you are ever unsure of, make sure to seek advice from a sheikh or a scholar, inshallah. And remember, my DMs are always open for any additional advice. My Instagram is at themuslima.pc. And if you ever feel that a friend may need my advice, share this podcast with them as sadaqah jariyah, because you never know when they might need it the most. And as always, assalamu alaikum, and inshallah I'll see you guys in the next episode.